Chances are, if you're a parent watching today, you've had similar experiences that I've had when I was going to my son Dylan's IEP meetings when he was younger. I remember trying to share the research, the benefits of inclusive education at the IEP meetings, advocating for Dylan to be fully included. And, sometimes you get these blank stares, or you see some people rolling their eyes, or maybe after the IEP meeting, a teacher takes you aside and said, I love what you're advocating for. Keep going. So we probably have had a variety of experiences at IEP meetings when we're advocating for inclusive education. Today, we have a wonderful chance to look at how we can alleviate some of that anxiety when we're advocating for inclusive ed, because we're going to be hearing from our guests about some maybe secret ways you haven't heard of where you can collaborate with your school district. And you can change not only mindsets, but heart sets and skill sets, as our guests say. So I'd like to bring on, we have not just one former university professor or author or parent of a furry friend or other children.
Oh, good memory.
Both of these guests have they have done so much consulting around the country on inclusive education, looking at equity in your school district and how to bring in, practices like co-teaching. And they have always been very generous with their time. And I appreciate both of them. We have Dr. Julie Causton and we have Dr. Kristie Pretti-Frontzcak. And I was kind of like, oh, I think I did it pretty good today.
Really well. Yes.
Really well. And fresh off of vacation, Charmaine.
I know. I told Julie and Kristie, I'm trying to get my mindset from sunset desert pictures to inclusive education.
There's no difference. It's the same thing.
The blending of colors in the sunset. It's like the blending of diversity in our classrooms.
There you go. The blending of practices from general ed to special ed. There we go. We got it. All right. Well, welcome. And thank you again for having us, Charmaine. Julie, let's start with just some fun things about what's going to happen today in terms of giveaways and coupons and all that good stuff. And then we can get into some secrets about how to create more inclusive schools.
Okay, so we're so excited that you're here with us today. And Kristie said there's some fun things like giveaways. Well, you're going to be able to select something from our shop, like a t-shirt.
Charmaine, do you want to show my slide?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. There you go. There we
go. So we just want you to see what's possible. This one says communication is a right. We've got all sorts of beautiful t-shirts that are all about inclusive education, and you can win one today. And the way to win today is putting in lots of comments. Just like we already have Karen's here and Kimberly's here and Cheryl's here and Anne-Marie's here. So go ahead and just put a hey, I'm here, ask questions and connect with us, because that's how you'll be selected for a t-shirt today. And then you might get to win a seat to the Summer Leadership Institute. So we're so thrilled to be able to do this. What we have for you today is it's going to be for today or all the way through the weekend. If you watch it on the replay, all the way till Sunday night, Charmaine is going to do a live Facebook Live where she picks a winner. And if you don't know what the Summer Leadership Institute is, we'll probably talk a little bit about it later. And what we want you to know is, back to what Charmaine was saying, we really think that the work around convincing schools to become inclusive shouldn't be on the shoulders of families. It should really be something that is part of their professional development. And that's what Kristie and I do all day, every day. So part of the job, part of the role is to get your team to the SLI.
So we're
Okay.
going to start today. I guess the past two broadcasts we've done with you, Charmaine, we have kicked it off with a video. And this is a PBS video. It's free. So if there's something in it that you find that would be useful to play at an IEP meeting or at a conversation you're having with your partners with the school district or vice versa, if you're meeting with families, we're going to watch a quick video. It's the third part in the three-part series. And Julie, why don't you go ahead and set us up for what we're about to watch and why this one for our secrets for today.
Okay, good. So you might have seen the Circle Makers or Because of Oliver. Those are the first two in the series. And this third one, called I Think There's Been a Mistake, is really all about what it takes to do school-wide inclusive change. So if your school system thinks about special ed and thinks about resource rooms and segregated classrooms and places down the hall, this is really what it takes to create an inclusive school system. And the way we show this video is through the eyes of a particular student who used to be segregated and becomes in an inclusive classroom.
All right, Charmaine, you bring it up into the thing and we'll push play. And it's about 5 minutes, 6 minutes long, and we'll put the link in the chat as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Julie Causton, and today I'm going to be talking about inclusive education. This is a story called I'm Afraid There's Been a Mistake. Here's Derek. When Derek started school, he was assigned to a special education classroom. This classroom was called Room 104. Unfortunately, a line had been drawn between him and most of the other students at his school. He was kept out of the regular education classroom mainly because of his IQ measure. IQ means intelligence quotient. IQ tests are an old-fashioned way to look at smartness, but they are very biased based on race and privilege, and only measure certain kinds of smart. This IQ test is still used in schools, but there are real problems with using it and drawing lines between people based on the score. These are the other classrooms in Derek's school. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third, fourth, fifth grade. Students in these rooms have scored higher than Derek on his IQ test. There are 4 special education teachers who teach in this school. 3 teach in a resource room and 1 teaches in room 104, Derek's classroom. Students leave their classrooms to go to the resource room. They come and go all day. But something changed when Derek was in 4th grade. Luckily, the principal and many teachers in his school are becoming circle makers. They started asking about how inclusive their school was. They did not like how Derek and his classmates were in separate classrooms. They did not like all of the coming and going and all of the disruption to learning. They did not like how students had to leave the classroom to get help, and how an IQ test that they knew to be old-fashioned and biased could separate students one from the other. They wanted students to stay with and learn with their friends. They wanted to make their entire school inclusive. So Derek's school took a new IQ test, but this time, instead of the students taking the test, they measured the school. This new IQ test was called Your School's Inclusion Quotient. It is a helpful tool and it helps circle makers discover areas that are already inclusive and to highlight those areas. It is meant to help circle makers see where they can widen circles even more, because every school can become even more inclusive. Here are 4 example questions from the inclusion quotient. Do you have a clearly written public inclusive vision for your school? Do your school leaders and teachers believe that all students should have access to inclusive education? Is disability seen as a difference and not a deficit? Do all students have access to their home school, which is the school that they would attend if they didn't have a disability? After taking this new test, they realized they had work to do. One area they needed to improve was how their school was organized. They needed to make the day smoother for everyone. They did it just like this. They had to make new circles. Now there were no longer lines between students, and now students were out of those special education classrooms. All students were together inside the circles called general education classrooms. Next, the teachers had to learn new skills. They had to learn to lose the labels and see student strengths and design lessons with diversity in mind. This was no small task, but as you well know, circle makers are the most creative sort of people. In 3 years after the circle makers put in all of this work to create more inclusive schools, they found there were successes all around. Reading scores improved by 30%. Math scores doubled. And best of all, students and teachers were enjoying their school experiences even more. But what about Derek? Now, as you remember, Derek moved from room 104 to a general education classroom with all fourth graders. On the very first day of school, his teacher, Ms. Clam, reported that Derek had an amazing day. He raised his hand, he answered questions, he had fun learning new content. But at the end of the day, he did not want to line up and go home. Ms. Clam asked him what was wrong. He leaned over and he quietly whispered, "I'm afraid there's been a mistake. I used to be in room 104, and now I'm here learning with all of these other fourth grade students. If I go home, what if someone in the office discovers this mistake and puts me back in room 104? Miss Clam, who happens to be one of the best circle makers we know, leaned over and said, "There has been a mistake, but the mistake wasn't this year. It was all of those other years when you were in room 104. This year, you will be in this class and learn with all of us." "You promise?" Derek said. "I promise," she said. That year, Derek loved fourth grade. He made many friends, and guess what? Just like everyone in the school, he did better. He improved his reading, math, and spelling, much more than he ever had in room 104. I think Derek is right. We have made a mistake in education. Our mistake has been relying on outdated tests like IQs as a way to determine smartness, and using these tests to separate students. The mistake has been in thinking about smartness in only one way and missing all the ways that people are smart. One way to fix this mistake is to change what we measure. Instead of measuring how ready a student is to fit into our system, we can measure how ready our system is to support all students together. This has been, I'm afraid there's been a mistake. I'm Dr. Julie Causton.
And I know, right? And it's like every time I listen to it, I take away something else. And, friends, what struck me today was I think sometimes people don't realize that we understand that it's going to be work to change the system. Like, I don't know how many times the district told me the other day, but Kristie, but Julie, we don't have the staff. We don't have the training. We don't have the money. We don't have the space. We have to be realistic. And yes, we have to be realistic that this is going to be a challenge in some places in fashion and form. And at the same time, we have to say, this is the student's right. It's not a question mark. It's not a when we're ready. So it struck me again that yes, that system has to hold up all those students, and we know how to do this. It's not like, oh, I wonder how we'll do that, Julie. How do we make systems change? Anyway, that's what struck me today.
Yeah. And for me, the word promise really struck me today. In fact, it almost brought me to tears just thinking about the fact that we all can make new promises to kids that they can be included, and it's not as hard as it seems. And today we're going to share some of our secrets. Some of them you might know, some of them you won't know. The first one, though, that we have at the ready for you is that change is really hard sometimes, specifically for line makers. So if we can put up slide 5, that'd be great. There it is. Change can be hard, particularly for line makers.
You have no idea how hard I'm working over here.
Everybody give Kristie a little bit of love.
I'm like, thank you, Julie, for talking really slow. I can't do it.
It can be hard for line makers. So if you saw the circle makers video, what that means is we've got all these people who have been educated to think that we can draw lines between humans and sort and separate them, and that is better for kids to do that. And first secret is change can be hard. And so Kristie, do you want to explain this?
Okay, so this is coming. This is an image or a kind of a graphic that's coming out of our new book through ASCD. But what I love about it is that it says, "Yep, change is complicated. Change is squiggly. Change looks different for everyone. We're maybe at point A, and we want to get to point B. And if every district were to draw their line from A to B, it would look different." However, there are milestones, there are pit stops, there are strategies that everyone can benefit from or pick and pull from to help them keep going. And so we just wanted to show that change will look different for everyone. However, we know a couple of things about change that can help the system actually get to point B.
Okay, so this secret is, I think, very important for all humans to understand. And it is, if we approach a school system, so let's imagine you're a parent and you believe in inclusion and you're so excited for it, and then you meet with your IEP team and they're like, that's not how we do things. There's this moment where you realize, whew, it's resistance. But what we want you to remember is it's actually simply a process for people to go through. And I'm not saying we have to allow a lot of time for this process, but I am going to say one of the ways to make real change is to actually have empathy for folks going through this change process. And it means that we have to realize that there's loss, there's doubt, there's discomfort. That's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And when we look at any humans going through inclusive change, we see this. We see loss, doubt, and discomfort early on. And then you see the bottom part that's called the danger zone. And in the danger zone, that's when people often say it's too hard and we're going to go back to the way things used to be. And we're going to actually stop the change process. But what we want you to know, go ahead, Kristie.
I just want to play on that what Julie just said. It's too hard. Either it's too expensive, it's too unimaginable that we could find the staff to do this. It's too outside of my comfort zone. So I was trained in a very traditional special ed paradigm. And so, you can feel a lot of shame or you can feel a lot of confusion, like, aren't we harming children by moving towards this? So whatever it is, as Julie's alluding to, it becomes to a tipping point where people are like, too much money, too much hardship, too much confusion, and we'll just keep it the way it is, at least for another year or 2 years or 3 years until we get the staff, until we get the training.
So what we want to make sure you hear is that sometimes, no matter where you are in the system, you have to support others through change. You have to bring them along and be supportive and kind. And when I say this, I know how hard it is, but it is really the only way to make real change is to stay. We're going to talk about something that's pretty magical later on today that gets people through the danger zone. And that's the positive emotional attractor. So we'll get to that, which is the antidote to helping people through the danger zone. And what we know is a lot of times we just shout louder. So as parents, we're like, but did you read this research article? I've made 500 copies, right? I'm going to say it louder. I'm going to stand on my chair. I'm going to, send you to a website or whatever. And we give more facts, more figures, and people push back at us. And we're surprised by that. But human nature says that when we're pushed, we push back. And so we're going to give you some really careful strategies that will help you to work with your school system to make it more inclusive instead of it feeling so working against school systems.
You want me to go, Jill? Sorry. So generally speaking, before we get to kind of in the particulars, but this is important, like when Charmaine said, mindset, heart set, skill set. When it comes to mindset, people are like, how do you overcome resistance? What happens when I have shared my differentiated why in triplicate to everybody in every format and language? you yourself can hit that danger zone and go, it's just too much. It's just too much on our family. It's too much on me. And then you're like, nope, pull myself up by my bootstraps. But it is true. It is a lot. So we got to think differently. How do we add a catalyst? So people are going to resist change. Even if I thought the change was a good idea, at some point I'm going to be resistant. So how do I have a sense of agency in this system-wide endeavor? How do I make sure my nervous system says you're safe? So one administrator said the other day, they just had to reassure people that even though we were moving people out of room 104, you're not going to be fired. And that's, I think, for line makers, paraprofessionals maybe, or special educators, it's understanding that you still have a critical role in the school system. It's just not in one room. You're going to like sprinkle all that magnificent knowledge everywhere. And so what we want to do is reduce and remove barriers, but people are going to say it's too much money. It's too hard. We don't have enough PD. We can't overcome these barriers. And so how do we start to remove those barriers and allow people to see that there's possibility here? Okay.
And so for those of you who are like, how do I have patience with a system that's harming my child? We hear you, we know. And I've found in 25 years of doing systems change, inclusive education, we have to work with the humans that are making the change. If we work against them, we're much less likely to be successful. And so it's really about doing this hand in hand and as quickly as we can. So we hear you and couldn't agree more, actually. And we've got to figure out how do we do it hand in hand and as quickly as we can. So
yeah,
that
so
all
start
of our
with
learners,
this idea that it's a whole system that you're moving. It's not about, even though you're advocating oftentimes for a child or even a group of kids with a certain label, it's really the system that needs to change. And we need to help the system understand where those ableist and sexist and racist practices are. Just like in the video, the use of IQ measures to label and separate and sort kids. Our entire eligibility process is based upon deficit orientation and sorting and separating. So we have big issues that are systems level, but they're absolutely overcomable. I'm going to make up words because it's achievable, so it's overcomable. All right, so Julie, let's go to a little bit further into the weeds with how to keep lids on and avoid the danger zone, because now we know the danger zone's coming up. Maybe you've hit it in your district. How do you get people over the danger zone?
okay, you help keep lids on yourself, keep your lid on, and help keep others' lids on if you can. And so first of all, you might be like, what are you even talking about lids? So this is the hand model of the brain. And if you'd like to join me, you can put your hand up like this, tuck your thumb in and put your fingers over the top. All good, thoughtful empathy, all good decision making and learning and growing happens in the prefrontal cortex. Okay. And the reason we're telling you this is all day, every single human, because of stressors in your environment, your lid starts to flip and you might have your limbic brake go off and go all the way down to fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Fight, flight, freeze, or faint means that the individual or the team of people that are working with your student might become really resistant or start to fight with you or freeze and do nothing. If you've ever worked with a teacher and you're like, I'm trying to get them to do all these things and I'm not seeing any changes at all, they might simply be in a freeze mode. So what this means is you can help all humans put their lids back on so that you can have civil conversation that leads to better inclusion of your students. So I know this is why we're calling it a secret. Is it a right? Yes. Should it be done tomorrow for all kids? Absolutely. But it's not. And so how do you get there? And it is through putting lids back on and getting people back into their prefrontal cortex so they can have a conversation. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine you're driving in traffic. Here you are, you're thinking and you're moving along, driving in traffic, and then your dog is in the back barking at someone, and then your kids are doing something, and then something's going on behind you, and all of a sudden you realize you're late. and your lid flips and you're down here in fight, flight, freeze, or faint. That's how quick it happens, and it happens all day, every day. So in order to make an effective argument with anyone ever, their lid has to be on. They have to be in this place where they can learn and grow and think. So Kristie, let's talk about how we help folks understand the research we're sharing, how we help people understand what we're doing. And this is pretty magical.
It's pretty magical because, again, our knee-jerk reaction is, let me say it louder. Let me say it to more people. Let me put it in print if you haven't heard my voice output. And what we want to do is say, in that moment, if you're seeing so much resistance, you're getting a lot of yeah buts, and you're getting maybe even aggression or such rigidity, or people have shut down and you're now that parent, right? Okay, you've got to trigger what we call the positive emotional attractor, or we call it the PEA. And the PEA tricks any brain anytime. You can actually trick your own brain. Even though you know you're doing it, your brain doesn't care. It's like, oh, thank you. I like that. I need it. So what the brain wants is to feel hope and compassion and even a sense of playfulness. But what happens in the monkey mind and all this input from the dog barking to the traffic to the kids to your steering wheel not being smooth and easy to turn, your body registers that as, I have something to fear. I feel anxious. I feel guilty. I feel shame. Now, you may not be aware of it. We talk about this threshold of awareness. You may not be aware that you feel like you're not enough, or that you're failing because you're late, or you cut somebody off, or you yelled at your kid, or whatever it is. But that is registering in your body, and it will keep you from going over the danger zone. It'll keep you searching for comfort, searching for safety, searching for what always has been. So we got to trigger the PEA. All right, Julie, let's tell them how to do it.
Okay. Yeah, keep going. One more ahead.
One more? Okay.
Yep. One more ahead. Boop.
There we go.
Okay. Here's how we do it. And I know that if you work with Charmaine, she is so careful to think about how do we advocate for kids with school systems. And this is just more strategies. These magic strategies are like gold. So you can think about an ideal future event or possibility. Meaning, as you're sitting in the meeting, you could say, let's think about the end of 3rd grade. I really want my son to have lots of friends, to be able to be invited to things outside of school, to have, and you just start to think about or dream about an ideal future event or possibilities that are coming up. And you do that with educators.
Yeah, Julie, that's a really good example. You could say, this is my dream for my student. If you had a crystal ball or a magic wand, you could say it to the principal, the director of special ed, the 3rd grade teacher. What would be your biggest dream for your next school year if my child was in your classroom? What would be the best possible outcome if, we had all the resources in the world? You just invite people to see there's hope and possibility, and just have this kind of big question that people might look at you funny. Julie always asks me, what's your dream for today? And I hear it so often that on Sunday I said to my husband, so what's your dream for today? And he was like, it's Sunday. I don't really have a dream. I'm like, but that's the idea, is like, if anything was possible, what would you love to do today? Okay. And Julie, maybe you want to see the handout, or do you want to go through all 5?
Yeah, Kristie, why don't you show the handout, because this handout is in the Facebook Live chat or the comment section. And so Kristie, can you share the handout? Is that what you're working on doing?
It just takes me a little while.
No worries. So as Kristie is pulling it up, what you'll see is there are all these different categories of how to trigger the PEA and all these examples. Now, we talk to administrators about how to do this. We talk to families about how to do this. We talk to teachers about how to do this with kids. So every example might not fit perfectly for you, but you can change it a little bit and use the ones that would work best for you, the examples. All right? Is it working, Kristie? Oh, look at you.
Bam. Getting there. Okay. So here we are, just where you were about vision for the future. Okay.
Yeah. And Karen, thank you. So Karen just put an example of a vision. Like, I want my child to always feel like he's enough and that he can overcome obstacles with his friends by his side. Yes, amen, exactly. And it's like a lot of times you'll do a vision statement at the beginning of an IEP or you'll hand something out. But it's like keep returning to your dream and keep saying it like this is the dream for our family and this is something we know is possible. And all of those things trick people's brains into going, okay, we can do it. All right, Kristie, each of these big headings, like expressing self-compassion, is really, really useful. So saying things like, even to say to an educator, I know you've never had a student with autism in your class before like this, but I think we can learn and grow together, right? Just the words learning and growing is an invitation to say, we can do this, and there's a possibility there. Anytime, anytime you talk about what you're grateful for in a real way, not that you're trying to placate people, but you actually share with them what you're grateful for, it will make great inroads with those educators. And then experiencing a sense of hope. These are more examples of how to do this. Kristie, what would you pull out for experiencing a sense of hope?
I think I would do something like think of someone who's helped you along the way and, what was it about them that really helped you achieve what you got today? And that's not a great example, but I was just thinking like how every time somebody says who made a difference in your life, it's always an educator. So triggering for them to think about how did they get here? What did they need? And then sort of connecting it with like that you have that as a superpower, people. The school district has that capacity to provide that for my student. Maybe even this one, what is currently working? Julie and I just were helping a team transition a second grader to third grade yesterday, and we spent the bulk of our time together talking about what is working. And it took them a minute, didn't it, Julie? They were like, and then all of a sudden it just started to flood out that it was like all of these things that they just sort of took for granted now, but 3 months ago they were not doing that. But just thinking about, wow, there's so much hope for next year because look how much we've learned this year.
Yes. So when you get pushback, when you get flipped lids, when you get snarky emails, is it right? No. Is it, does it feel good? No. Should it happen? No. And it does. It's because you're working with humans. And the more we remember that these are also humans, these educators, these administrators are also humans, and we can support them to do this work really, really effectively. And it doesn't have to be on your shoulders. You can hand them right over to us, Julie and Kristie. We'd happily take them, and we'd happily take them through this process so that it's not all on you. Okay, we have a third secret, and it's real simple because we're not going to spend any time on it.
All right, so
yeah, it's the law. So the law is behind us in all sorts of ways, and Kristie's putting a link to a Facebook Live that we recently did with Pat Radel that's amazing, and it's episode 7, and it's all about the legal underpinnings of inclusive education. Okay, so it's okay to pause this and go over there and then come back, whatever you want to do, but this will help you see exactly. Pat Radel is a special ed lawyer, and he shows us exactly where it shows up in the law. However, if lids aren't on, Kristie, can they learn any laws around inclusive education?
Nope.
Nope. So we have
they can't
to get
learn it. They can't recall it. They can't say, oh, yeah, well, we should. It'll be like, well, we still don't have the staff.
That's right. And you'll see all sorts of what we call red or blue behavior. Either blue behavior, flat affect, we can't, sorry, or anger, that kind of stuff. And we know that it's hard, and it's possible too. And it's just over and over and over again. Yeah, Melissa said, least restrictive environment, put it on a continuous loop. They can't say no if they haven't tried. Yes, and there is a deep legal underpinning. However, that doesn't put a lid back on though. So we've got to have lids on before we keep sharing about LRE, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and what are supplementary aids, supports, and services. Yes.
Yeah, I think that if you are wanting to pare it down to what does the law say about inclusion, and the the legal education that Pat gives us every day is amazing. Check out that Facebook live broadcast or that In the Circle episode, because we really break it down and talk about the presumption and what does IDEA, which is the federal law in the United States, have to say about inclusion, and how do we provide supplementary aids and supports, and how many of them, and where do we provide them. And then we even talk about how you don't have to have good behavior to be included. So there's really some important things in that conversation that you might be able to pull out pieces and parts. And sometimes I consider a video like that a third object. So like I could say, hey, maybe find who's furthest away from the danger zone in your district and say, let's watch this part together and tell me what we could do to get even closer to what Pat's talking about. What are we already doing that Pat talked about? Let's celebrate that. And then let's look for where we can build on some of that momentum. Again, giving folks a sense of agency and the sense that they're safe versus, hey, you're doing things that are illegal and harming. We're this step away from due process. Now, that sometimes catches people's attention, but it certainly flips their lids. And so what we need to do is figure out a way to keep lids on so they can hear the message and then work in ways that are building on our strength and where we have momentum, where there's already a catalyst, so we don't get as much pushback. All right.
Okay.
Where do we go from here, Joel?
I was just gonna see if we have another secret at the ready.
Oh, I think we have a bonus one.
Okay.
Hey.
So, hey.
It'll just take a while to show it, so just wait for a drum roll. That's all.
Okay. So we have a bonus secret. And if you feel overwhelmed, like, how would I ever keep lids on, support, and do all the things? We just want to tell you, if you can get your school to the Summer Leadership Institute, give us 3 days with them of learning. And we promise, I could promise, that your school system will become much more open. Yeah. Much, much, much more open to including all students. So I don't know how you want to get your school leadership team in connection with us around this, but August 8th, 9th, and 10th, I don't know if you're noticing these presenters popping up, but it's like no big deal. These are like really, really fabulous, amazing, worldly presenters all about inclusive education for 3 straight days. And so our bonus tip is make sure people know about this and how to get to it. And you probably know that we're giving away a seat. We're not going to give it away today, though, Charmaine. How are we giving it away?
So what we're going to do is to make it more accessible for other people that couldn't be with us live. If you share this with friends, neighbors, coworkers, they have until Sunday midnight Eastern time to watch the replay to make a comment in order to be entered into the drawing. So today we're giving away a t-shirt, and the more you comment today, the greater your chances for the seat at the leadership. It will be, 1 entry per person, but the whole idea is that we want you to be able to share this goodness with others. If they just watch that intro, video that Kristie and Julie shared at the very beginning, I mean, that is something that's going to capture the minds, the hearts, right? And then to share the link so they can go. There's a wonderful opportunity for the whole district to be able to tap into it. Parents, individual teachers can also register. So know that the prize at the for the seat at the Summer Leadership will be drawn this Sunday evening at midnight Eastern.
And I was going to say, friends, some folks said, we're back in school. We have to go back to school. Like, I haven't even left yet. We have to be back. No problem. Couple of ideas. So when you get a pass. That means you can come and go. And we've tried to do things at different times of the day. So you might be able to slip out. You might be able to get released. You might not. The good thing is everything is recorded, and you will have access to that on into next year. So even if you can't join us live, it's worth thinking about and or talking to your district about, because then they will have professional development for the entire year. Julie and I will be doing several sessions where we will talk about look-fors in the classroom. So what do we look for around behavior, around co-teaching, around differentiation? So in addition to these very inspiring sessions from self-advocates, from movers and shakers in the world, Julie and I will also be giving you really practical things about how to do the work and how to change the system. That will be the mission of SLI.
Cool.
Yeah. And Charmaine, you've attended SLI multiple times.
Yes. Yeah. And I encourage parents to register, because there is so much information and inspiration that you're going to get. So it's a wonderful way for us to kind of recalibrate and re-energize for the new school year. And then when you are having conversations with educators, you can share, well, I heard these two speakers and they shared these practical ideas. So you have something to bring to the conversation instead of just, saying over and over, I'd like my child to be included. You'll be able to give people concrete ideas. So I really encourage parents to look. And I know before we've talked about it, and I've suggested that parents check with like their parent training and information center, because oftentimes they have scholarships for parents to attend conferences. If you have a local ARC that supports parent training, so look at some of the disability organizations in your local area or state, because chances are you can get some assistance for the registration.
Fabulous. Fabulous. So that's our secret. And today I kind of want to review our secrets that we talked about. So just to remember, we talked all about the fact that change is really hard for human beings, just humans themselves. The second is we have to help humans keep their lids on in order for them to learn and grow in any way. So we gave those secrets around the positive emotional attractor. The more you become versed in speaking to and with educators and administrators using these simple tools to help human beings feel respected, feel cared for as we make these changes, that is literally the only way we've seen to make powerful inclusive changes. Now, we well know you can litigate and you can make change, which is also fabulous. However, sometimes we see the most lasting changes happen when everybody is doing it together. And then the third big secret that we shared today, sorry, I'm scrolling, is it's the law, and that's why. And we've got a really great video for you to look at that way. And then the bonus secret is make sure everybody knows about the Summer Leadership Institute, so you parents don't have to do the heavy lifting to train educators and administrators about what's possible, what it looks like, and how they can do it. We've done this work, each of us, for 25 plus years. And those educators that come to the Summer Leadership Institute leave with a very, very, very different mindset, heart set, and skill set than when they came in.
So thank you again, Charmaine, for letting us join your broadcast today and share some more secrets and let people know about SLI. We'll watch for any questions in the thread. So if people need links again or want to know where something is that we referenced, and then we'd love it if any of you do register by the seat or for a district, you can do a PO, or you can do it online. If you do it online, we're just using a little coupon called inclusion. That just lets us know you're part of Charmaine's community. And then we're going to use, we'll gather you together in ways and make sure that what you need is embedded into SLI. So it's just helpful for us to know that you're part of this community. Okay?
Yes.
Anything else?
I know
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I know we have a little more time, and I was just going to pull a couple questions out and we can answer them, because I think there are really some good questions here. Cheryl early on said, do you think that educators come to IEP meetings with their lids flipped to begin with?
Mm.
And Kristie, how would you answer that?
I mean, I think often, yes. I think just knowing you have an IEP meeting, think about if you're a family member, think about, especially if your kid's IEP is coordinated with their birthday. I had a parent, Idaho actually, that said to me once, you have ruined my kid's birthday. And I was like, what did we do? And she's like, you schedule these IEP meetings on their birth date. Do you think that's a fun thing for us as a family? And I was like, oh, well, it was easy for us to remember when the next time it was, right? And so, but I know as a provider, just going into an IEP meeting, especially if there's one where I think it's going to be contentious or I'm going to feel like I'm not enough or on and on. So yes, and I think even just being in the meeting, Julie, there are stressors because there might be confusion, there might be uncertainty, there might be a hot room, there might be at the end of the day. So there's all these stressors that are bombarding everyone's body. Even if it's a good meeting, we still have to recognize that our lids could easily flip.
And so I want to say two more things. Parents often walk into the room with their lids flipped.
True.
Not that you mean to, because it's all without you planning it. It's under the threshold of your consciousness. It means your lid is already flipped and you're already ready to go, either ready to fight, ready to leave the room, fight, flight, freeze, or faint. You're in some combination of that. And so some of these little strategies that are on that PEA handout can help you put your own lid back on. And somebody way back up said something about co-regulation. And if you're an expert in co-regulation, I'm thrilled. And it means simply this: all humans have mirror neurons. And even if I change my voice volume and my pace and I calm my body, it calms everyone else's body. Even though I'm in New York and some of you are in California or Australia, it's called mirror neurons. And so the more you can keep yourself in that place or space of being really calm and keeping your lid on, and as soon as you can't any longer for whatever reason, you say, let's take a break and we'll come back when we're ready. So I loved your question, Cheryl. Most people do walk into an IEP meeting with their lid off, and we can all co-regulate for one another.
And actually, I think what might be fun for you and me, maybe before SLI, is to take our PEA handout, or anyone that wants to do this, and adapt it for what would be appropriate PEA triggers for an IEP meeting. Like that would be kind of fun to have that at the ready, so that you just knew a thing you could say, a thing that you could say, even if it's self-talk, that would actually trigger everyone in that meeting's lids back on, yourself included. So that would be kind of fun.
Actually, for fun right now, if you're listening, put in the chat, what would you like to hear at an IEP meeting that might put your lid back on? I'm going to use one that I love. If I, like someone said, sometimes I start to cry in an IEP meeting, for sure. And it's just like if someone said, we're right here with you, and they meant it, not just said it, that would be something I would like to hear.
I think I would like to hear something that someone just says that, oh, Julie, show them one of your kindness bombs. Can you show me one that you did today? Do you have them at your fingertips? These are brilliant. These are like the best thing ever to trigger the PEA. But Julie does this to me. We'll just be working, and then she'll all of a sudden put it up to the screen and then look at these beautiful things that she says to me.
Oh, cool.
It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm goo.
Today I said to her, and it's true, your sense of humor makes life more fun. This one I also said to Kristie today, but when you see anything, I admire your ability to bring out the best in others. These are called, Kristie got them for me, not with the intention of me sharing them. They're called love bombs, kindness cards. But just have some things at the ready that are going to help put people's lids back on, so that they can,
and I think I was just visualizing. I love those cards. So, and I wanted to put up, if people don't get my weekly newsletter, you can sign up here at iep.today /weekly ad tips, because we'll put the links that they've mentioned, but also can you, Kristie or Julie, give me the link for the love bombs, or Can I just find that on Amazon?
Oh,
Or,
yeah, I just got them on Amazon, but I'll find them.
because I'm just thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool? Well, one, I want to make a love bombs for IEP meetings. I think
Yes,
that'd
I
be
know.
cool. And then, like, to spread, so this is my picture. You spread some of the cards out just in the center of the table or down the middle of the table. And like, whoever notices something at one time, they could just grab the card and say, and wouldn't that be, I just think we need to change the tone. We need to change the atmosphere of IEP meetings. And this would be such a wonderful, positive way to do that. So, I am so excited. So,
And I just want to highlight what some people are saying. So Karen said, my lid would go on if I heard, I'm so excited to have your child in the class. He always knows how to make me smile.
Oh,
Sandra said, we've got all day to collaborate. There are no time limits. That would put her lid back on. Those are beautiful examples. And it's really helpful for school systems to hear this too. So we always have lots of educators who watch this to say, hey, I've got all the time that we need to get this done. Because I really care about you and your child and their success this year. Just all of a sudden, my lid is on just saying it or imagining it being said. Right? Yeah.
yeah. And Trisha's from Idaho, and she said, I'm going to put a sign on the table that says Team Ellinger, and to emphasize that we all are on that same team for the child.
well, of course, there's more brilliance coming out of the great state of Idaho. What would we expect, right, Charmaine? I mean, come on, people.
Yes. If you don't know, Kristie's from Idaho. And Cheryl says, yes, that the love bombs would be so appropriate since we're discussing a child. Yeah, and just to focus people. But yeah, I love those ideas and strategies, Julie and Kristie, that you've shared about how to keep our lids on or to put them back on.
Right.
And, I mean, like you said, this applies to students. It applies to husbands and wives. Right? It applies to, all kind, wherever there's another human that we're connecting with and we're relating with. And so these are good reminders for me as an advocate to make sure that I center myself and have my lid on before I hit, go live on the Zoom meeting or whatever. Because that's the way that we're going to make progress. That's the way that we're going to make change and keep the relationships with the people that are really important in our kids' lives.
Yeah, and you have to find your own style. I mean, if love is too, if you're like this far away from each other, thinking of love is really hard. So you just look at it as like a little magic bean that by saying one thing as from compassion to hope to the vision for the future, the brain can't help it but go, I feel a little better. And so Julie and I often remind folks that every second the brain is scanning. It uses all your 360 of your body. And it says, am I safe? 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 5 times every second, it's saying neurologically, am I safe? And so if you have chapped lips because you live in Idaho, or you have a contentious team meeting, all of that is causing your system to go, nope, nope, nope. And so someone goes, you know what? I love what you're wearing today. You just be like, I'm your new best friend. Like, it doesn't take a lot for us to just simmer a little bit. So if you find things escalating, you could just say, hey, I just need a quick sip of water. Anybody else need water? I'd be happy to get water for anyone. And people are like, oh, you're going to get me something? Like I'm thirsty too. And so just have those ready. You don't have to say I love you, but you could say, I need a little water. And all it does is just dissipate the stressors, just disrupts that dance and lets something new and hopeful to come into the place.
Yeah. So people are wanting to know if we share the slides. We can share these slides, but we didn't have a plan to do it. So if you want to email Kristie, is that a best way?
Yeah, I can also put them, I can get them to Charmaine and she'll put them in the show notes.
That's better even.
And I can post them here in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll post them so you can come back and see it. They'll be in the show notes. Those
Thank
are the
you.
ways that you can get them.
Yeah. Good.
And it's totally fine to share them. And people are talking about lids and hats, which do we have hats on our, someone asked, do we have hats in our merch? We do have hats.
Yeah.
Of course I want ones that we can take off during IEP meetings to say my lid's off. I need a break. Like, yes.
But Julie, that's funny because we do sometimes, we call it shark music sometimes when we talk about these stressors. And I have co-teachers who have symbols like a shark spin that says, I have shark music right now. And then somebody can step in and save you.
How neat. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think using creativity and, just thinking of the group dynamics and how you can make those changes would be so helpful.
Charmaine, where are the show notes? Sorry, I said show notes, and then folks said, where are the show notes and where do you put them?
So the show notes come out tomorrow, and I do that through my weekly newsletter. So I know a lot of people on here today already get that, but if you're sharing this with others, you can go to iep.today /weekly adv tips. And we do have a couple minutes. I also want to remember that we're going to be giving away a item from Julie and Kristie's Inclusive Schooling merch shop. So we also want to make sure we do that. And Angela says, chocolate is love. I always bring chocolate to IEP meetings.
Absolutely. And I was just going to suggest, and Kristie, I was going to see if you could you go to our merch area while Charmaine picks someone from today? And if you haven't, if you're here and you're like, I didn't even comment, but I want to, because I want to be eligible, you can just say hi in the chat right now or anything at all to get yourself eligible. And so what you're going to win is the opportunity to get a free one of all of these things. So we'll show you what's in the merch shop if you're like, I don't even know if I want a t-shirt. Well, you probably do.
And I'm closing my eyes and scrolling through the comments. And we'll see who our lucky winner is today. Show Kim. All right.
Kimberly, our good friend. Yay.
So Kim, do they need to contact, does she need to contact you?
Yeah, so I'll put that in the chat here. So you pick what you want, and then what I need is your name and your address, and you can email it to me. And then inclusive schooling, you can't do both.com. And then if it's a t-shirt, I need to know, like, do you want a V-neck, a crew neck? Do you want a small, a medium, a large, a purple, a pink, right? So just pretend like you're placing your order and you're just going to email me and say, here's my name, here's my address. I want a medium, crew neck, communication is right, and we'll get it taken care of.
Cool.
So Kristie, as you're scrolling, people are noticing flight risk and all these really fun ones that we have. Someone earlier before we were showing these was talking about the idea of non-compliance is a life skill. There it is.
Life skill. Yeah, let me see that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Let's see. Non-compliance is a life skill.
All right. And for all of those of you who have flight risk kids or students that are non-compliant, if they're a flight risk, it means they're down here in flight, freeze or faint, and it means they're leaving the room for a reason. Just like all of us, all humans go to fight, flight, freeze, or faint. And so it helps sort of normalize.
The inclusion one is like a super cute one. And so then cute. The one that is for SLI this year that we'll all be wearing is that I would rather be excluded for who I include than included for who I exclude.
How fun.
I can't read out loud.
And so to remind people to share this with others, because in order to create systemic change, we have to have a large circle of allies, right? And so make sure that other people know about the Summer Leadership Institute. The district license is like the best bargain for a year of professional development. The individual seats. And I think, Kristie, you clarified that if you buy an individual seat, you have access to all the recordings for, is it a month
I
afterward?
think it's a month. It might be a little bit longer, but yes,
Okay.
because SLI is in early August, and I think you get all of August and all of September. I just didn't want to be wrong, but I'll make sure you have it.
Great, great. So any other last minute thoughts from Julie or Kristie? And just to thank you so much for always taking time to be with us.
Our pleasure.
Just thank you all. And people are asking questions about how much is an individual seat. And that's a really hard question, but Kristie will find it.
I'll find it. You know, numbers fall out of my head, but that's doable. We can do that real quick. Let's see. I think it's like, I shouldn't say.
787.
I think you're right.
Because early bird pricing went off a while ago.
Here's the individual seat. 787. You are correct, Charmaine. So if you want an individual seat, there you go. And then the district license, I'll put that link in too.
And Sandy, I am now singing Highway Through the Danger Zone too. And I hope you saw it. SLI 2022, Highway Through the Danger Zone would be amazing. If you have excellent ideas like this, you can always email us too, because we love to play with educators and parents who are doing this work. And so, like, for example, if you're like, I've thought of 50 things I'd like to hear to keep my lid on in an IEP meeting, and that's enjoyable for you to do, send them our way and we can make sure that you get credit for them. And we'd be happy to work with you all. So, yes,
Great,
IEP
great.
has.
Well, I'm looking forward to the beginning of August because I know the summer leadership will just be, like I said earlier, that burst of energy, and that, you know, knowing that everything is figure outable and that when we work together, we can really make change that not only affects our individual children and our students in our classroom, but kids throughout the district, throughout the state, throughout the country. And that's the mission that we're on, right? Is to make that kind of change. So we need more people. So keep gathering those circle of allies in your own community. And we are at the top of the hour. So thank you so much for everyone spending some of maybe your lunch break with us. We will be back. Our next show this summer will be Thursday, July 7th. And we have a surprise for you for that show. So stay tuned. And Julie and Kristie, have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you virtually in August for sure.
For sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.